That's not.
That's
We are.
We are.
But I should
Looks like it.
Yeah.
She needs a bar stool.
It's founded in folk.
Okay.
I might set my little alarm.
Yeah. I see.
Did not prepare for this.
I can't.
So we have a little agenda.
It's fine. I just.
Oh, it's okay.
Use it to share.
Oh, she wants to get out of town.
Oh, yeah, think about it.
You have the power.
Well, you have the power. That's what I'm thinking. Hello, for anyone I don't know, I'm Jenny Morse. My company Appendance provides business writing training to corporations around the country. I am often the backup moderator for Leandra. And so since Leandra is on the panel today, I am in the role of asking the questions and coordinating things. So we'll start by having the panelists each introduce themselves and very quickly tell us what you presented at Founded in FOCO, or I guess Denver Startup Week is in here too. So what introductions, what things you presented, we'll start there.
I'm James Keppel, founder of Energetics Health, and my presentation was on clarity, chaos, and everything in between.
Yeah.
We're still doing it. It's going.
Ongoing. Sounds very experimental.
Well, as I said earlier, I'm Leandra Foster. My business is Elon Life Consulting, and I work with women who run their own coaching and alternative wellness businesses to make their businesses more profitable through financial education and relationship with money. So I actually did a presentation on what's your next step to help them see, to make the most of the week so that they didn't just go to everything and get completely overwhelmed. And then that nicely led into, if you have profitability, how to take your passion and turn it into profits.
I'm Candace Edelin. I spoke at Startup Week in Denver, as well as the Fort Collins one. And with Nick, I put together Scale Up Day for the Fort Collins event. And so I spoke at a lot of sessions because I interviewed all of our Scale Up speakers because I try to make it easy on them. And then I also, at both here and in Denver and at other events, I've been speaking about how to use LinkedIn to find sales leads. So, and I've been getting a lot of speaking engagements, not so much in person. The in-person's more fun, but so I can talk about that too, if you want me to.
Awesome.
I'm Julie Elstrup. I am the founder and CEO of Julie Elstrup Photography, Your Unique Brilliance, bringing your brilliance to your online presence. And I also am a women's leadership coach. I also, I spoke about your presence online and how that looks and how you show up and how that affects your business. Cool. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cindy Skalicki with On Point Communications. I help individuals and groups make message mastery achievable. And so I do that through advanced presentation skills development with content, talk structure, pitches, and delivery. And I also provide executive presence training. And my session was part of the Scale Up Day because I've done some, seen some growth this year, and I had an opportunity to share my story versus teaching. And I talked about the 7 insights I have pinpointed after closing 100,000 in sales in 42 days this last quarter, wow, which was not planned or part of a specific roadmap I had laid out. It kind of just happened. And so I reflected on that and shared some of my insights. Having been in business 7 years, almost to the day that I gave that presentation. So that was kind of fun.
Awesome. So you can tell already we have excellent, amazing experts up here. The second or the starting question really is, what did you get out of presenting at founded in FOCO, and how do you feel like it benefited or not your business? So what can you tell us?
I wasn't there necessarily to talk about my business, and I was there more than anything to research a book that I'm working on. And the idea of clarity and chaos is that many entrepreneurs, they call it neurodivergent, which is just a fancy word for chaos. But we suffer from having all these ideas, more than you can ever achieve in a lifetime. And how do you sort that out, not confuse your team, not confuse investors, et cetera, down the line. So I wasn't necessarily there to promote my business, but what happened was I ended up meeting a couple who are very involved in functional medicine, which is what Energetics Health does, and made a good connection there, which continues to this day.
I think the big thing for me was recognizing how many speaking engagements I have done and basically just like thrown away the opportunity. And this time what I did differently that I was so proud of myself for is that I had handouts to go along with what I was talking about. So I had a handout for what's your next step so that they could see the questions and they could check the check marks. And instead of just giving that to them or putting it behind locked doors, I actually had them enter their name and their email address so that I knew who actually showed up and that they could be on my mailing list so that they could get touch points for what's your next step. They might not be ready for my profit piece yet, but they could be, and just having those touch points along the way. So I did that for both of them. And I think that was a huge thing that I did differently. And I just had a QR code that they could scan to then get it on their phone. And like I said, I was still pretty proud of that because I've been doing this for 4 years and have thrown away so many speaking opportunities.
That was the game changer for me. So I spoke in April at a conference in Florida, and then Denver Startup Week, and then Fort Collins Startup Week, all on the same topic. Thank you, Cindy, for helping me. My goal was to convert people to our course on LinkedIn, training people how to prospect and find leads on LinkedIn. And the game changer is to create an asset that they want that's related to what you're talking about, that you can just kind of weave into the talk and stick that QR code up there. Everybody's cameras are going up and it's just so much fun, is it not, to see all the cameras going up? Yeah. You make the form really simple because they're going to be looking at it on their phone. So be careful not to overdo it on that form and just get them the asset quickly. You can market to them later, but that's been like a super big game changer in all 3 of those talks, is to use the QR code. And I thought that I made a mistake because I also delivered the talk electronically just over Zoom. And I thought, well, that was dumb to put a QR code in there because I can just chat the link. Because the people that hosted that recorded the talk. Right? And so the link would have gone away after that, but I continued to get registrations. I mean, I did a talk 9 months ago and we still get registrations for that talk today. So QR codes, QR code monkey, if you want to figure out how to do that, it's free. Man, it's such a freaking game changer.
Yeah. Ditto. The other thing that I'll add to that though is I also have cards that people write the information on, and here's why. Not at Startup Week or not with this event. However, I have been to events where they're like, there's no Wi-Fi, I can't. So I do both, and that's super helpful. The other thing that I do that helps people engage more is I call people the next day. I have a touch point the very next day. And I ask them, I'm like, what is it that you want? How can I support you? What do you need? So for me, it's really about, I go into the presentation with the intention of giving and sharing and teaching, because that's what you know, that's what people need. That's why they're there. That's what they want. So, yeah, the follow-up is super important.
Yeah.
What's the question again?
Yes, so. The original question
Come on, I forgot the
is,
question.
what did you get out of
Um,
speaking and how did it benefit or not your business?
Okay, so for previous years at Startup Week, you know, my MO is usually to teach, and so I decided to do a different thing this time. So I didn't bring content to share that people would be scribbling or writing down as much. I didn't have a super great sized audience, which was unfortunate. So I don't know how it impacted those who were there. I have heard good things from people who came, but so I have to go the other way, which is just to say that for me, I mean, a tangible thing is I brought a photographer, not knowing if there was going to be like a lot of people, and I got some good assets for myself that way. But you know, when you're invited to speak and you have to come up with something new, there's always value in that. And really, for me, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to throw a bone out there and take a risk and talk about something that I'm not super comfortable talking about. Like, I was frankly like, am I going to look like a big egotistical person coming in and saying, look what I did? And that's not really the way I want to be perceived. So I fought those gremlins and thought, you know, I think there might be people out there who could benefit from learning about what I did and how I laid a path that eventually surprisingly led to this huge win for my business. And in this local community where I've known so many people here, I thought, well, this is a little bit like a scale up story. So maybe it's going to help people see that you might be one person right now and you might be early, but if I can do it, you can do it. And that was really my message. And so it forced me to reflect on the stepping stones. And of course, I made them all start with P so that I could remember them and think about something easy. But it's lent already to other topics I might talk about in other events, like the fact that like one of my final slides was a huge picture of the Wrigley Building in Chicago. Because when I was 13, my mom took me downtown. We walked across the bridge and I looked at that building and I was like, man, that's a gorgeous building. I'm from Chicago. I would love to work there someday. And like 9 years later, I was working there on the 9th floor. But I never expected to work again after I had children. It was not on my radar. And so the value for me was having the time and forcing myself to find some new insights about me and my life and the trajectory and the abilities that have led to this moment and then to others that I hope will follow. So it was more of not selfish, but like I got some learnings from forcing myself to talk about something new and a little bit scary.
Yeah. Candace.
I also want to point out something about Cindy's speaking and the benefits of doing something, even if it doesn't look like it's going to bear fruit immediately. Because I saw Cindy speak in 2019. Is that at
Probably.
Startup Week?
I was there.
And I hired her this year. So, you know, that talk gave her so much credibility because she focused on teaching and we weren't ready then. So don't assume that just because somebody doesn't engage your services right after that they won't build a relationship with you and come back. Because that did a huge amount to establish your credibility with me.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, and on that note, Candace and I took a walk last week, and as we were talking, it was one of those things where both of us have come to the realization of like, oh, when we only offer our services twice a year, we have a year-long sales cycle. And so that's really how I saw the speaking is like my program started the next day. I was like, anybody want to sign up tomorrow? Okay, great. Well, at least I have the QR code, so I can just, be having those touch points so that when it comes around in the spring or in the fall, you might be ready. So I think that's an excellent point.
Nurture, nurture, nurture.
Thanks. Yeah.
That delayed effect thing is very important. I got a call probably 2 months ago about a talk that I did in 2011. And I'm not in that business anymore, but I'm still doing the project. So, just because you don't walk out and say, I got this business card and here's the project and everything, there's long-term effect. And on the issue of follow-up, I'll call Jeff Havens out as a great example of a way to follow up with the people, and he can share his details, but I found it to be very
You
effective.
talking about the text thing? Yeah, so when I do a talk, I have a slide at the end of my talk that says, if you want all the notes from this presentation, I took them for you. So text my name to a 5-digit code, and we signed up for, I think it's like 20 or 30 bucks a month for a phone number email capturing thing. I can't remember what it's called, Survey Monkey or something. But anyway, once you text that name, then it says enter your email address and you'll get access to it. And it's free. I'm not selling anything there, but I am collecting your email address. And then I put you in my newsletter. And then every month I send out a newsletter. And I don't even care, honestly, if you read it. I just want you to see my name in your inbox, once a month.
And the other thing that I thought was great about it was that Jeff included other talks that he had done. I think there were 5 total.
Yeah.
I've watched every one of them.
Yeah.
So it worked on me at least.
I think along those
Sucker,
lines,
no.
What was that?
I'm so glad, James.
Cindy's like, I got a few talks.
Duly noted.
I think one of the most important things about what you're saying is when somebody sees you speak, they feel like they have a relationship with you. And so what I find is that people who are receiving my emails, I send out a series of LinkedIn tips. And if they've seen me speak, they feel connected to me, and they're much more likely to read the emails and get back to me and say how much they like the emails. And then my sequence stops and they complain. Like,
Can I say something?
You can.
As an organizer, when y'all come out and speak, whether it's the attendees putting it on the survey afterwards, say, we must have Jenny back. I want to hear more about this. And so you get invited again and again and again with more content, and even the experimental content that you create. I really was inspired by Cindy's talk this year, ... That gets you invited back again. And when we do screenings to look at who's speaking and if it would just get a random application and they've got links to where they've spoken before, if they're engaging with the audience, if they're doing something useful, if they've got good marketing ability, then that speaks really well to their ability to stay organized and on task for a future talk as well. So it really helps in terms of getting yourself opportunities.
can I follow on that really quickly?
So I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
But we are supposed to pause and refill our coffee cups. And just, I think this is a good place for us to pause and do that, because I have a bunch of questions that are related to all this stuff that I want to follow up on. So we'll take, what is it, 2 minutes to refill your coffee?
Make it fast.
3 minutes.
There's only 2. Right?
I didn't get any. clues yet.
So normally it is.
Yes.
Is that right?
And you don't need to leave if you don't want to.
It's overturned.
I think we should all be.
One, 2.
Yes, I will. She's posted up. I'll just.
I'll go on.
Okay.
Never say it before. I just know that one's up.
Yes.
I guess I should say like.
There's space on the schedule.
Well, I told him, I'm like,
You're right about that.
And that happens every
Right
year.
here.
And
I
all
did
we
my
do
presentation
here
back
for
in
these that are applying
2019.
for startup, we
I'm
don't
gonna just do that.
Okay.
structure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's, you know, but I mean, that to me,
I don't want.
me getting feedback with, I mean, Mike comes here.
Yeah, I just must have.
I got.
I gave my speech here, I didn't ask for.
You're in.
You know, and I mean, that day, I was so relaxed.
Right.
So I'm relaxed now.
One of
The only
them.
time I wasn't relaxed was the last time I did it.
Every resident.
And I felt that 3 times.
Just wondering.
I generally walk.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually-
So who you're receiving?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
See, with me,
like the 15
I don't
minutes.
instructor,
I'm getting no joy.
But I mean, it helps me when I'm outside.
I got an idea of business plan.
Because one of the things I think I do was a presentation I saw way back for.
Yeah, no, I've talked to various people with the city and other areas.
So it's
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I've been surfing around, meetup site, well, it's broken, meetup site's broken. Yeah, just try to match it.
I'll give Friday.
Well, you know, I mean, and it's so funny because 1, 2, 3, the fish. Oh, the
I'm not changing my schedule.
All right, Jenny, you're slow.
But
I can definitely tell.
Still like I'm in dominant.
I was, Peter was there.
Really threw it off.
No.
Everybody wants to
There's a lot
come,
of-
like, everybody's playing floater.
I'm mad.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I had two, they're totally different questions, but you can answer, I suppose, either one, because Cindy has to go real quick, so whichever. But here are things that I was hoping you would talk about. You're all talking about this present, like the most recent speaking experience, maybe not the most recent, but a recent one that you all had around the same time. From this point of expertise, like here's what I did this time. So I kind of wanted you to think about the first time you ever gave a presentation. Okay, in your role as your business, and like what you've changed more than just adding a QR code. Right? So what kinds of things have you learned since that first presentation that you feel like took you that long to get there? And totally separately, okay, unrelated. Do you record your presentations, and do you have any limits on what you record? Or why?
Record what, like in general,
Like, do you allow them to record you or not?
at events?
It's
and
so this
such?
is like, are there different kinds of
Okay.
presentations? Because like my corporate training, I would not let anyone record, right?
Unless
That's
they're paying for licensing. and
and
stuff.
licensing,
Yeah.
yes, that would be way more expensive, right?
Right.
But there's like a presentation, sure, you can record that because that's not all of the content. So what are sort of the limits, or how do you make those decisions about what can be recorded so they can see your QR code and decide to work with you later?
Well, the first question, I'm trying to think of like when I first presented in my business, which was 7 years ago. So I did the first startup. I mean, the first time I presented was probably at 1 million cups. And I remember being nervous, even though I do this for a living. And I remember trying to figure out what type of, I think my content has definitely improved as far as my ability to connect with where the audience is and what they need and what is helpful. And I've become a much more engaging the audience speaker, like, we're going to do some work in this session. I'm going to leave you with value, not just teach you stuff that you're going to have to apply later. So I think that's what I'm hearing from people, is that's made it a much richer event. You know, I don't want to just talk at people anyway. I mean, that's not very fun. I'd rather it be a conversation, as was said earlier. And then the other question about recording, like, so I wouldn't allow a company or a client to record like a full, you know, a full segment or module, and then just have at it. Like this was a discussion I had with DuPont, like they wanted to record it to like share with other DuPont people. And I was like, oh no, we will talk about that. But you can't just copy and paste me without paying. And then last week at UC Boulder for their Lab Venture Challenge, it was like, oh, do you have the camera set up? And I was like, I'm sorry, is there someone recording something? And they're like, oh yes, we have 3 people who can't be here. We will delete it and not like, you know, and I was like, okay, great. Those 2 people can have it, you know? So now conversely, you know, there is a free training at my website right now at the homepage. It's a blue button. It says, watch a free training, and it's on how to rehearse without rehearsing. That kind of give first mentality is huge in terms of how I've grown my business. So I don't lock everything by any stretch. And so there's plenty of stuff that I'm happy to give, because when people get it and use it and have the experience of winning and getting the value, they want to come and usually work with me on the next message or whatever. And, you know, giving is a really important part of growing your business. And yes, there are limits, and mine have changed, I guess, and are still probably going to keep changing depending on what I create. So I don't know. It's my sense. And I'm gonna go. That's fine. Nice to see all of you guys.
Is it being recorded?
If you're recording me, no, I'm just kidding. All right. Bye, everybody.
What were the questions again?
So they're 2 very different questions. Like when you think back to the very first time you presented, you've changed more than just the little details that we've talked about. So how would you characterize those changes? What is the growth that you've done? And then separately, it was just you record presentations, and what are the limits on that?
So my first speaking engagements were more inspirational, motivational kinds of things. And one of my first public speaking was a TED Talk. So it was recorded and it's still up there for everybody to see. And it's inspirational, motivational, and I feel like it's good that it's there for people to see. So I don't yet have any limitations on recording what's recorded, what's posted. The same as Cindy, I feel like the more we give, the more we grow. And the teaching part of it, that's really what's, so 2 pieces, that's really what's changed. It's more interactive. My talks are more interactive, more conversational. And yes, I do share them, and I share them on my YouTube site as well. So that's how it's changed for me. Yeah.
So I have changed my talk a lot. So if you don't know me, I shifted, well, Phil and I shifted our business dramatically because of COVID. We were in marketing consulting and we've shifted into being LinkedIn trainers, and we have an online course and we run accelerators. So there's different parts of my content that I permit to be recorded and parts that I don't. Start with the, how much has it changed? Oh my gosh, it has changed so much. My first talks, and ironically, it's like really inverse because I've really improved my talk, but my conversion rates have gone down. So figure that one out. So the first time I delivered this talk to a group was actually at Startup Week in 2019, and I had nothing to offer on it. And I did a webinar for a company that has been up there since 2019. And that converted into a deal in 2020. It was such a funny situation where the guy literally had the tab open for my webinar on his computer for a year. And so that was actually what resulted in us launching the course, was them hiring me to train, because we were taking anything at that point during COVID, right? So yeah, I was really glad that that recording was up there. So then since then, when we first launched the course, we did a training that was pretty similar to what I originally did in 2019. That was at the in December of 2020. We had 89 people show up. It was a sponsored event that a company did, sponsored it to have us speak to their resellers. And we sold 15 course memberships from that. That was a show up and throw up kind of presentation. I covered like the whole gamut of what we do. And in each segment, I'm like, okay, in the masterclass we're about to launch, this is what else we'll cover. So I gave them a really clear idea of what was missing. And I think that that was the key. Since then, I've really narrowed down. I've gone through Cindy's program and we've narrowed it down to, these are 3 things I want you to go away with. So I get amazing testimonials. Like at Denver Startup Week, Phil went around with his camera and got 3 video testimonials for our speaker page just from that. And I got a ton of testimonials from people at the event. But compared to 89 people, I sold 15. This time we had over 100, I sold 5. So I think what I did wrong, and it's so counterintuitive, is I packaged it so that they could get some wins. And I didn't do a lot of, this is what you don't know. And so now I've got to go back and try to revamp the talk to add in the what you don't know. I tried to do that with this LinkedIn framework that I show, but it clearly didn't deliver the message, because I should have converted 15 to 20 of those people instead of 5. Now more people may convert down the road because I'm still engaging with some of them on LinkedIn. The jury's a little bit out on that, but I'm disappointed, which is kind of ironic. So in terms of what I allowed to record, that company that hired me to do the private training, they wanted to record it. And I'm like, no, this is my intellectual property. And they're like, oh, okay. So don't be afraid to push back, because I didn't have to push back hard on it. For our webinars, I was reluctant to let them record, because then they want that up on their site and I never see the leads. That's where the QR code has been such a game changer, because now I'm getting the registrations from those, even if they live on somebody else's website. But then if somebody wants to sponsor an event with us, which we do a lot of, I try to run it on our site so that all the registrations come through my forms instead of their forms. And then I just have a disclaimer saying we're going to share your information with the sponsor. And that way I get everybody, because a lot of times we'll get 50 to 100 registrations for a single event. So I really want that list builder. So that's been my kind of trick on that. And then we'll put the recording up on our site.
So many thoughts. And then like, wait, no, I'm just like, what? Okay, first talk. My first Startup Week talk to this whole thing, I just gave away the secret sauce because I knew nothing about marketing. But that was actually good because that led to some other things. Aziza Syed, who I don't know what her technical title is, but over at Innisphere, she had me come in and talk with that group. And then when it came around to next year and I was like, I don't know what to talk about. So I just didn't even sign up. I actually got asked to speak after signups. And I said, well, what do you want me to speak about? And she said, well, could you do a startup business budget? And I was like, sure, I bet I could do that. But that has actually become part of my secret sauce. Like that is now. And so to me, Startup Week has almost been like my test ground, like how stand-up comics, they'll go to like a throwaway show to practice a new set. Like, I don't want to say that that's a throwaway show. That's not it at all. But I'm saying like, that's my test ground of like, does this work? Did I teach it well? Did they understand what I'm saying? Because Startup Week does a great job of filling the room, which is something that I'm still learning how to do. So I have bodies so that I can see like and kind of figure that out from there to be like, oh, I need to tweak that part. I need to tweak that part. This year I was like, I'm a real business QR code. So I actually did my marketing talk where I didn't give away any secret sauce, but kind of did the or the touch points of like what you can get from it. But I like the takeaways that you're saying, because I did take away one of her takeaways and I used it and I was like, yes, it worked. And then when he responded, I was like, now what do I do? So there was I think the now what do I do needs to be included in your speech.
You need to take prospecting mastery. It's such an important point. People get wins out of that all the time. And that's where you get those testimonials, if you can give them quick wins.
And I'm not far enough along to have had anybody
Ask to record you for posterity.
I've spoken
Yeah.
many dozens of times over the years, always about different topics. And my objective has been very different, I think, than maybe what yours are. I'm not trying to sell anything other than myself as, having some expertise in a certain area. So you want to be educational, inspirational, that sort of thing. So just that sort of frames my answer here. The first time I did it, I can't remember, but I can guarantee you that it sucked. It's like anything creative. It's going to be terrible in the beginning and it gets better and it gets better and it gets better. The main thing that I learned was have a purpose, talk with a lot of focus and bring them home to one point. That's an overriding sort of thing. As far as the way I've talked, I went from giving lectures to having conversations. That was a big difference. And I very clearly remember when I did that, and it was the 2011 talk that I was talking about. That is still the best one that I've ever done, as far as I'm concerned, because it accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish. It was pointed. I got a lot of very good response. It established me, and it was focused. As far as the recording, I record as many of them myself as I can because I don't trust that the organizers are going to record it at all. Number one, no offense, Nick. And number two, that they're going to do the job that I want done. So founded in FOCO, I brought my own. It really helps when your videographer lives in your house rent free. So that's just a little side hint. But I bring my own people, and but again, since I'm not trying to sell anything, I don't have to worry about them showing it to more people. I want them to show it to more people. So my objective is very different.
All right, last question before they ask questions. Rapid fire. So you only get to say one thing. The most important thing, and no repeats, most important thing that you want people to know when they are applying for speaking engagements.
Be unique. Find out as much as you can about what everybody else is talking about and do something completely different.
Pass. So she said no repeats. I was like, oh, no, I changed my title after looking at everybody else's to make it clear.
And a good title doesn't.
Oh,
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I helped with organizing Startup Week this time. And one of the things I noticed is that when you write the application to speak, you're thinking about, you're talking to us as the people who are making the decision about whether you're going to speak. But we're taking, I mean, in this case, was it 68 talks and throwing them up on the website? Guess what we're not doing? We're not editing what you submitted. So that's going right up on the website. And that's true with Denver Startup Week, and it's true with every conference I've ever applied to speak at. It always makes it look like on the application that you're speaking to the conference organizer and that you're writing a proposal for the conference organizer. Don't write it that way. Write it to the target audience that you want in the room, because all we're going to do is copy and paste. So you make it a lot easier on the organizers if you do that.
Write it in marketing speak.
Write it in marketing speak to your audience. Yeah.
I would say clarity, which is focus, clarity of what you're going to speak about, what I'm going to speak
slight repeat, Julie, but it's okay.
about.
It
I
goes
just
back
words
to
it.
what James was saying
But
when I
it just
started giggling.
reinforced
Have a purpose.
from
Central.
an
purpose.
audience point of view.
Yes. Do we have any questions? I don't know how much time we have.
Seconds.
I was just gonna say, I had a couple thoughts. I presented as well, but I just didn't know I was gonna be here today to say, hey, a couple things for my presentation. I didn't have a huge attendance, but exactly what you guys were saying, it forced me into creating some content. I got to try it out. And from there and advertising it, I got some leads to do some other things on that topic. And that was my first time presenting probably outside of this group here in Fort Collins. So that was great. And I thought Nick did a fabulous job, since I'd never attended before, of organizing. I felt very comfortable coming into it. So that went really well. And exactly to your point, Candace, when I applied, I didn't write it in Marketing Eve. I thought I was just writing it to the panel. And then it was out there, which was fine. It worked, but thank you for that.
This seems to be the point. It's not just Startup Week. It's like everything I've applied to.
Yes, that's great to know. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna add to the one word, memorable.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So people don't remember hardly anything in your presentation other than your face and, maybe a story you told. And just make sure that story leads to your business, right? I remember this person who spoke about blah, blah, blah. Oh, and then they go look, they'll look for it, right? They'll look for your name and your QR code, but so memorable.
As presenters, I heard a few different people say they didn't have a ton of people in the room. Did you do anything to instigate filling those seats, or was it just more so like you submitted your presentation to the Startup Week and then like hope that you came to a room full of people? Was there any steps that you took personally to say, hey, come see me, I'm speaking at this thing?
But I did. Typical, put it out on LinkedIn. I put it on my calendar, the days that I want it to be on LinkedIn, because it's good posting times and it's close to the event, it's far from the event, whatever. So there's all those standards that, yes, I do on a regular basis. But the other thing is that Nick and his team did a great job of giving us the material. So just having that one template, everybody use the same template. Okay, it just comes, you post it, couldn't be easier. And as a suggestion for 1 Million Cups, I've done 9 1 Million Cups presentations now. And everybody handles it differently, but by and large, most of them do that exact same thing, where they give you a template, your face is on it, they talk about what you're going to talk about. And I don't think that we're doing that enough here.
Oh, damn.
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea. I think Dave will be happy
I
to
will-
email you. Email the images to you so that you can make that.
I will
template for
pass
us.
that idea on to
Alright.
whoever you find.
I do only have 5 minutes left, so I do think we should thank our panel for participating. And if you'd like to ask them more questions or find out about what they talk about, what they do, you can connect with them.
Can I make one call to action?
Yes.
So we're doing Founded in FOCO, starting March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We need more people to come on and help us organize it. One of the challenges this time around was we didn't have enough time. We didn't do enough promotion. So we need everybody to help promote it. Your point is really on point, is everybody in this room, if you can help us with the promotion, like I can put it out on my LinkedIn all day long, but most of my LinkedIn connections are not in Fort Collins, so it's not relevant. But also I need a deputy to help me with Scale Up Day specifically. We have a planning meeting coming up at the SBDC conference room over at Front Range Community College next Thursday, 5:30. Please come if you have any interest at all in Fort Collins Founded in FOCO, which is our new name for Startup Week. Please come and help. It's fun. It's a fun committee and we need you. We need your help to put this together, especially marketing help.
So Candace has started us into how we end with wins, resources,
And who
who
needs
needs
help?
help. Any other shares,
I
wins?
know of a new marketing guy.
Great.
Off Peter and Beth's.
No, wins, resources,
I got a
please for help.
win.
Yeah.
Did a financial independence workshop last night. It was packed really well. So that's it.
Peter and Beth.
Yeah, their hands are going up. What, one of you?
So, um,
No.
I had everybody's attention, right? Hold the room. So we applied to the Hyper Accelerator. Danny, you did push us a little bit. And they were in. So next week you won't see us. We'll be like buried in the Hyper Accelerator.
I'll miss you.
Well, I wanted to celebrate that.
I know. Congratulations.
I was actually with them last week after 1 Million Cups when they got the call and they were just slightly excited.
Awesome.
I did my first presentation under my business for an HR team in Estes Park last week. I did, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Dale and I last week hosted a webinar for HR professionals. It was the first time I've ever partnered with someone or did any sort of webinar like that. So that was a great partnership. I have no idea where the idea came from, but we got 25 names and emails, and that was the goal.
And we had QR codes up there.
We had lots of QR codes.
The entire
Just every slide QR code.
Yeah, I've started putting QR codes in the workbooks that I design for the trainings that I do. And so there's like a link to my book and a link to how to sign up for my newsletter. And that has been working great because I give them a paper copy. So we're doing like QR codes everywhere.
You know, we can thank COVID for that.
You're right.
because they've been
It's
around for
normalized.
years.
Well, as a designer, I'll say that the QR code is the ugliest thing you can possibly put anywhere.
It's true.
It's a
Does
barcode.
anyone remember like 2010 when everyone's like QR codes and we're all like.
No. Yeah, then it became useful.
So it is on the screen, but we are looking for a community communicator organizer.
So that is someone
They
as
can come up with their.
CCO.
a CCO. You can have the 3-letter title if you want. I just have not done a great job of keeping this group informed of changes around venues over the past few months. So we're going to have changes over the holidays and then coming into the year. So just someone who can use the mass marketing tool that we have, or the mass email tool, to notify everyone who's in this community. It's not about going out beyond 1 million cups and like connecting with all the different businesses or anything like that. It's just keeping these people and yourselves informed of what's going on with this group. So emails, Facebook posts, LinkedIn posts. It's not marketing, it's just informing us of what's going on.
All right, it is now 10 o'clock. You're free to go.
Oh, before I got the chains off.
Figure out how to use LinkedIn to post. I'm gonna run a 30-day LinkedIn posting challenge that starts November 15th. If you're interested, come talk to me. There is a charge for that, but come talk to me if you want to do it.
When are you starting?
November 15th, 30-day posting challenge.
My birthday.
I know, you already told me.